Hi, I'm Megan and welcome to my kitchen. In today's What's for Dinner video, I'll be sharing with you what meals we had this past week. Our dinners were easy to make, budget friendly, and delicious. So if you're looking for some weeknight meal ideas for your family, just keep watching. For dinner this first night, I made Copycat Logan's Santa Fe Tilapia. I have shared this before on my channel. I'll link that video down in the description box below for you. This is a dish that Logan's Roadhouse used to have. They have something like it on their menu still, but they've changed it from the way that it used to be. But this is so good. So if you like fish, if you like Southwest type dinners, I suggest you give this a try. And even if you maybe think you don't like fish or someone in your family doesn't, this uses tilapia, which is very, very mild. And between that and the seasonings and the black bean and corn salsa, I think it's a good introduction to someone who maybe hasn't tried a lot of fish or thinks that they don't like it. But yeah, that was dinner that night. Just served it up with some baked sweet potatoes and broccolini. For dinner the next night, I made pad see ew. I will have this recipe in the description box below for you. So I'm going to use these spring rolls. I got these from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to cook them up in the oven. And then these are the noodles that I'm going to use for the pad see ew. I just got these at Walmart. You can find them at pretty much any grocery store in their Asian aisle. I'm just going to cook those according to the package instructions. So in this skillet here, you can also use a wok. I've got this on like medium-high heat. I've got some vegetable oil in it. Once it's hot, I took some boneless, skinless chicken thighs. I thinly sliced them, seasoned them with a little salt and pepper, and then I'm just going to cook them until they are almost all the way cooked through. A little bit of pink left is okay because we're going to finish cooking it. Now I'm going to add in some minced garlic, give that a stir, and cook that for about 30 seconds. Now, according to my knowledge, traditionally in this dish, you would use Chinese broccoli. I do not have an Asian market near me and none of the grocery stores sell it, so I like to substitute using bok choy. So what I do is I take the bok choy, clean it, and then I take the stalks, slice them thinly. I'm going to add those, and I'm also going to add in some sliced mushrooms. You can use whatever vegetables you prefer. I cooked those for about 3 to 5 minutes until they started to get brown and tender. At this point, I'm going to take the leaves of the bok choy. I roughly chopped those. I'm going to add those in, give that a toss, and then we are ready to scoot the vegetables and chicken to the side. We're going to add in an egg, give that a scramble, and then push it back into the mixture. Mix the egg in, and then you are going to remove everything from the skillet and wipe out the skillet. Add a little oil back in and let it get hot. And then we're going to add in our noodles. And those, remember, I just cooked up according to the package instructions. So I'm going to spread that out a little bit. And then I'm going to add in my sauce. For the exact measurements for the sauce, check the link in the description box below. But this is basically dark soy sauce, oyster sauce, regular soy sauce, white vinegar, and sugar. So I'm going to add that, give it a toss, and then you want to let the noodles cook undisturbed for about 2 to 3 minutes so that they get nice and caramelized. Give them a stir and then let them cook for another minute or two. Then we're going to add back in the chicken and veggie mixture, give it one final toss, and that's it. It is ready to serve up. And here are those spring rolls. I just baked them up in the oven according to the package instructions. Here are the plates. So we've got the pad see ew, those spring rolls, and then I've got some just Thai's sweet chili sauce for us to dip our spring rolls in. And this pad see ew is so good. For dinner the next night, Gary was out and about and asked if he could pick us up dinner, and I said that's fine, but we both wanted separate things. But luckily, what we both wanted was pretty close to each other. So we did Texas Roadhouse and Panda Express. A big salad sounded good to me, so I can't remember what it's called, maybe the Southern chicken salad. I don't know. It's just fried chicken tenders, lettuce, tomato, bacon, cheese, hard-boiled eggs, and then I like it with their honey mustard. And of course, I got a couple rolls and their yummy, delicious honey butter. And then at Panda Express, Gary got the chow mein, the honey walnut shrimp, the Beijing beef, and then he tried the honey sesame chicken this night, which he hadn't had before, and he liked it. So yeah, that was our dinner. The next day was Sunday, and I can't even remember now what was on the meal plan originally for this day, but whatever it was, just didn't sound good to me. I wanted a Southern style Sunday dinner type meal, and so I just raided the fridge and pantry, and here's what I came up with. It may be a weird combination of stuff, I don't know, but I mean, growing up in the South, I will say, at least in my family and everyone that I knew, a big part of Southern cooking is using what you have, using what's on hand, and just rolling with it. So in the spirit of that, let me show you what I came up with. First up, I had some country ham in my fridge that I really needed to use up. And I have had a recipe marked in a cookbook for, I don't know, a few years for a country ham bake that I had been wanting to try. And I was like, okay, today's the day. This, in true Southern fashion, this isn't a quote-unquote recipe, more just a list of ingredients, so there are no set amounts, but I'll type it out down below. Basically, I've got a cast iron skillet here, and this is on like medium high heat. You're going to take your country ham and just sear it on both sides. You're not really worried about, I mean, it's really already cooked, but you're just worrying about browning it. Once you've got all your pieces browned, you are going to basically think like making a country ham lasagna almost. You're going to lay down some country ham, sprinkle brown sugar on top, add some more country ham, a little more brown sugar, keep going until you've used up all your country ham. Now we're going to pour some kind of soda over this. I'm using Coca-Cola. You could do Mountain Dew, you could do root beer, whatever you like. Just pour that over. Cover this with foil, and then this is going to go into a preheated oven. It was set at 300 degrees, and you're going to bake this for 1 hour. Now, next up, this is what really made me want to make this meal. I really wanted some chicken and dumplings, but I didn't have any chicken thawed and didn't feel like, freaking around with the chicken. So I decided, hey, I'll just do chicken and a biscuit. I've shared this many times before my channel. This comes from Angie over at If the Creek Don't Rise. I'll link that down below. This is so easy. And if you like chicken and dumplings, but you're like me and you like the dumplings more than you like the chicken, this is totally for you. So here are the ingredients that I'm going to use. I've got milk, some canned biscuits, and I think Angie said her and her mom, whose recipe it is, uses the little small canned biscuits from Walmart, but I had these on hand, so I'm going to use those. I just cut them in smaller pieces than what she does, in her recipe videos. I've got a can of cream of chicken and mushroom soup. That's just what I got on hand tonight, so that's what I'm going to use. She uses cream of chicken, and then I'm going to add a little bit of black pepper. So this is so easy. I've got a greased baking dish. This is, I think, a 9x9. I'm going to cut those biscuits up into small pieces, and then you are going to mix your cream of chicken soup with a can of milk. So you just empty out the can of soup and then pour some milk into that can and then add that to the soup. Give it a good mix. You're going to pour that over your biscuits, and then we're going to sprinkle that with pepper. This goes into a preheated oven at 350 for about 30 to 35 minutes until the biscuits are cooked all the way through. I had two hot dogs in my fridge I needed to use up, so I decided to do some quick sauerkraut and wieners. Here's what I'm going to use. Like I said, I've got those couple of hot dogs, a can of sauerkraut, a little bit of salt and pepper, and then sometimes I'll add a little pinch of brown sugar at the end. It just depends on how tart the sauerkraut is. So in this skillet here, I've got a little bit of bacon grease. I heated this up on about medium-high heat. I sliced up my hot dogs. I'm going to cook them until they are brown. And then I'm going to add in my sauerkraut. I just drained the can. I'm going to give that a good mix, season that up with a little salt and pepper. And then I like to cook this on like medium for maybe 15 or 20 minutes, stirring it pretty often. I like this sauerkraut to really cook down and get brown. And then, like I said, I will give it a taste and add a pinch of brown sugar. Not a lot, just a little bit to counteract the sourness and the acidity of that sauerkraut. But this is so simple and so good. I had some Velveeta I needed to use up, so I decided to do a quick shells and cheese. I've got some milk, some of this shredded Fiesta blend cheese, some of that leftover Velveeta, some small shell pasta, and a little bit of pepper. So all I did was cook up those shell pasta noodles according to the package instructions. I drained them and popped them back into the little pot. I added a splash of milk along with some black pepper. I'm going to put that cubed Velveeta cheese in there, give that a stir, and then I just cooked this on like medium-low heat until the Velveeta was all the way melted, and then maybe a minute before I was ready to serve it up, I added just a little handful of that shredded Fiesta blend cheese. Last but not least, I wanted some peas, so I had a can of these LaSour sweet peas. I drained them, added them to a little sauce pot with a little pat of butter, some salt and pepper, and just heated them through. All right, here is the finished chicken and a biscuit, and I did have 2 leftover biscuits. Basically, the size ounce can of the Great Value biscuits that Angie uses in her recipe is smaller than the can that I had. It was basically the 2 biscuit difference, so I just baked those up separately and brushed them with some of this honey butter once they came out. I'm going to also set out some honey just in case we need it. Usually when I have country ham and biscuits, I like doing a little drizzle on honey to counteract the sweetness of the country ham, but I wasn't sure if this bake would need it or not. Here are those shells and cheese. This was so creamy and so cheesy, delicious. Next up, I've got that country ham bake, and spoiler alert, didn't need the honey. This was delicious. This was so good. I will definitely make this again. Here are the sauerkraut and wieners, and then I've got my peas. I've heard people talk about LaSour peas for years, how good they are, and I was like, canned peas are canned peas. Wrong. These are so good and sweet and tender. So we've got the chicken and a biscuit, the sauerkraut and wieners, the shells and cheese, some of that country ham, a biscuit, peas. I gave Gary just a little bit of peas. Peas aren't his favorite vegetable, but he actually really liked these. And then I put some of the Y.O.Y.O's fried okra on his plate. He loves pickled okra. I can't do pickled okra. Ugh. Yeah, I'm not a big pickle fan anyway. Like pickled vegetables, but especially okra. It's so anyway. Anywho, pass on me for the pickled okra, but he loves it. So this was a delicious, comforting dinner. And then the other day, I realized that basically summer is pretty much over, and I haven't made my favorite summer dessert, which is a banana split pie. And I was like, I have to rectify this immediately. So I made a banana split pie. I have shared that before on my channel. I'll put that recipe video in the description box below for you. This is so good, and this was a perfect Sunday dinner. And as I say the perfect Sunday dinner, I kind of almost hesitate to say it, because growing up with my grandparents, Sunday dinner was lunch. I don't know if that's a Southern thing or a farm thing or a what, but growing up with my grandparents and, you know, a lot of people their age, dinner meant lunch, and supper was what most people think of dinner. But anyway, just curious if you all have ever heard that. If so, let me know below. But yeah, that was dinner. The next day was Labor Day, and we grilled out hamburgers and hot dogs. I asked Gary what he wanted to go with them, and he requested a layered pea salad, and so I decided to make that. I've shared this several times before on my channel. I'll quickly walk through it with you all, and I'll have it typed out in the description box below for you. Here are the ingredients I'm going to use. For the dressing of this salad, I've got some milk, mayonnaise, sugar, salt, and pepper. And then here in this little trifle bowl, I've got some romaine lettuce that's been washed and chopped up. You need some hard-boiled eggs, some shredded cheddar cheese, cooked and crumbled bacon. I'm just using the stuff in the package. And then I like to use frozen peas. Some people prefer canned. Just do whatever you prefer. You just want to make sure the peas are thawed. So, like I said, I've got my lettuce layered in my trifle dish. And then I'm going to add a layer of hard-boiled eggs. Next, I'm going to add on the peas. Now, you, of course, can, substitute, add whatever vegetables you want. I like to keep this simple. Years and years ago, I worked at a bank, and there was an older lady that worked there. Her name was Miss Wanda. She brought this in for one of the potlucks, and I just fell in love with it. It's simple, but it is so good. So in this little measuring cup here, I'm mixing up the dressing. Again, that's the mayonnaise, the milk, the salt, pepper, and sugar. I'm going to pour that over the peas and then spread that out. Next, we're going to add on a layer of the shredded cheese. And by layering it this way, by having the lettuce and then the eggs and then the peas and then the dressing, you don't have to worry about the lettuce getting yucky. So you can make this ahead. Just wait until it's time to serve it before you mix it up. Now, after the cheese, we're going to add on that cooked and crumbled bacon and then cover this. And it's best to make this a couple hours in advance. After making that salad, I had just a couple of the hard-boiled eggs left over, so I thought, hey, I'm going to do some quick deviled eggs. I didn't show me making it, but I've showed it so many times here. I just make mine with, of course, eggs and then a little salt and pepper, relish, some mayonnaise, and a little bit of mustard. Here's what I'm using for the hamburgers and hot dogs. I got the hamburger patties on sale at Kroger, and then maybe a week or two ago, these, is it Salins hot dogs were BOGO at Publix, and so I grabbed one because it was half off. And then to season up the hamburgers, I used the Steak and Shake hamburger seasoning. I did not show me grilling these, to be completely honest with you all. We had gotten a brand new grill. My old one died. And so this was my first time using it, and first time using grills, I always get super nervous because I feel like they cook differently, and you know, I'm always afraid like I'll either like incinerate them or whatever. So there was a lot going on, so I didn't show me making, but I'm sure you all are familiar with grilling hamburgers and hot dogs. Speaking of which, here are said hamburgers and hot dogs. I did add a slice of pepper jack cheese to the hamburgers. And if you've been with me for a while, you might be like, Megan, where's the barbecue sauce in the burgers and hot dogs? Because normally when we and my family grill out hamburgers and hot dogs, we normally baste them with barbecue sauce, this like minute or two of cooking. But y'all, today I actually didn't want the barbecue sauce. Gary asked me if I was sick, but yeah, I just wanted it without it for some reason. But we've got that, the buns, the layered pea salad, and then Gary, I mentioned this before, y'all, he loves the store-made macaroni salad. Homemade, he's okay with it, but his favorite is the store, and so I was happy to oblige. A lot easier, so we got that macaroni salad, and then I set out all kinds of condiments. We've got some lettuce, tomatoes for the burgers, and then here are the plates. So we've got our burgers, our hot dogs, the macaroni salad, deviled eggs, that layered pea salad, and then for dessert we had some of the leftover banana split pie from the night before. The next day, Gary had a late lunch meeting, and so he wasn't really hungry at dinner time, and he had another meeting actually that he needed to do. So we just did a yo-yo night. Yo-yo stands for you're on your own. Some people call this fend for yourself, figure it out. It is what it sounds, just everybody figures out what they want for dinner. So I decided to do a tuna noodle casserole. I've shared this many times before on my channel. I just keep it simple and traditional, quote unquote. I've got some milk, a can of cream of chicken and mushroom soup. Usually I use cream of mushroom, but this is what I had on hand today, so that's what I'm going to do. I've got some tuna, some egg noodles or ribbon pasta, shredded sharp cheddar cheese, and then I like peas in mine, so I'm going to go with the peas. So all I did was just cook up the noodles according to the package instructions, drain it, add it back to the pot along with the soup, the milk, the salt, the pepper, some of the cheese, and then I did add in some garlic powder. Then, of course, the drained tuna along with the peas. Once the cheese melted and the peas were warmed through and everything was warmed through, normally that's it. I stop there. Sometimes I will pop it into a casserole dish and like maybe put some crushed potato chips on top or a little shredded cheese and just bake it at like 350 for 20 minutes. But today I just kept it on the stovetop. But I'd seen someone on Instagram, I can't remember who it was, do like crushed Ritz crackers on top of their tuna casserole, and I thought that sounds good. And so once everything was warmed through, I added some shredded cheese and then some crushed Ritz crackers on top. I covered it with a lid. I turned the stove off and then just let it sit for 5 minutes until the cheese melted, and that was really good. I would add crushed Ritz crackers to my tuna casserole next time. That was really good. And then later when Gary got done with working, he just made himself a fruit and yogurt parfait, just granola, some berries, and then Greek yogurt. And yeah, that was our dinner that night. For the last dinner in this week's video, I tried a new recipe for herbed salmon and couscous. This was simple but really good. I've got my oven preheating to 425 degrees. The recipe said 375. I just adjusted my cooking time. Here I've got some salmon fillets. I rubbed them on both sides with some olive oil, salt, pepper, and then the recipe called for dried herbs, but I had fresh on hand, so I decided to use fresh. I added some oregano and thyme and then a little squeeze of lemon juice. I popped these into the oven and baked them for about 10 minutes or so. We like our salmon just a touch rare, but I know some people like them well done, so just cook it however you like it. I did some asparagus on the side. I roasted it while the salmon was roasting. So I just trimmed the asparagus. I drizzled it with some olive oil, salt, and pepper. And then I used some of this Tuscan Sunset seasoning that I got from Penzeys. This was really good. So I just tossed the asparagus with the seasonings and oil and baked it at 425 again for about 10 minutes. Now for the couscous, I've got some olive oil in this small saucepan. This is on medium heat. I'm going to add in a diced onion, adding a little bit of salt, 1, to season them, 2, the salt helps the onion break down. I'm going to cook this for about 5 to 7 minutes or so until the onions are really tender. Once they're there, I'm going to add in some garlic. This is minced up. I mince this in a food processor and then just put it in a mason jar in my fridge. Sometimes I also use the stuff from the jar. I'm not above both. So I cooked the garlic for about 30 seconds, and then I'm going to add in my Israeli couscous. Couscous is just a pasta. These are little teeny tiny balls. So I'm going to give that a stir, and I cooked that for maybe 2 minutes or so, and I did stir it a couple times. Now I'm going to add in my broth. I use some of this chicken bouillon powder and water. So I'm going to give that a stir, bring this to a boil, reduce it to a simmer, and then cover it. And you want to cook this for about maybe 10 minutes or so until the couscous is tender and all the water is absorbed. At that point, we're going to add in some fresh lemon juice along with our herbs. So I'm doing oregano, basil, and parsley. I'm going to give that a stir, and then that's it. The couscous is done. I'm just going to cover that, set it to the side to keep warm. So here is that finished salmon, and then we've got the asparagus as well as that couscous. Now, I will say this with the couscous, I did not add any salt to that. There was plenty of salt from the bouillon powder, and in fact, if you're a little sensitive to salt, or if you're supposed to watch your salt, I would cut back a little bit if you're using the bouillon powder. If you're using chicken broth, I'd definitely use a reduced sodium. All right, these are the plates. So we've got the salmon, the couscous, the asparagus, some lemon to squeeze over the salmon, and like I said, sometimes the simple things are so good. This was so delicious, had really great flavor. All right, that is it for this week's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I know it's been a while since I've done a what's for dinner video. I apologize. We have had so much going on. And then, you know, if you saw my post on YouTube, on the community tab, you know, I talked about, you know, just kind of taking a little bit of a break from YouTube, but I appreciate you all so much being patient with me on that and being understanding and watching this video. So if you liked it, hit the thumbs up button below, subscribe to my channel if you're not already. That really does help my channel, and I really appreciate it. I hope you all have a great rest of the day.